Hello, everyone. As we have global audience, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to our SAP community call today. My name is Larissa Brinkmann from the SAP Global User Groups organization, and I'm your host. The topic for the session today is SAP Sustainability Data Exchange updates. We have already conducted several sessions on this topic, and I will put the links to those sessions in the chat later. But today we will be focusing on the updates of the SAP Sustainability Data Exchange solution. I'm happy to announce our speakers. We have Jessica Bartels, who is Product Marketing Lead, and Tim van Kerkhof, who is Product Manager for the SAP Sustainability Data Exchange solution at SAP. They will lead us through the session. Before handing over to our speakers, let me share a few housekeeping rules. We kindly ask you to post your questions via Q&A tool, and our speakers will answer them after the presentation is finished. The PDF of this session will be made available to all the participants and to those who will watch in replay in the description to the video. So afterwards, you can always click on the same link, watch the replay, and also find the PDF in the description to the video. With this, let's get started, and over to you, Jessica.
Hello, and thank you for joining today. So as Larissa mentioned, Tim, who's leading the product management, and I, who's leading the product marketing for SAP Sustainability Data Exchange, will give you an overview on what's new for this solution, what is the main use case we are currently working on, and what will come up for next year. So let's get started. And as Tim is also leading the slides, I will keep reminding him to change those. So first, we have two standard use cases for the solution. The first one is PACT. This is a standard initiated by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and over 2,000 companies across various industries have adopted that standard already. With our solution, you can use it easily to exchange product carbon footprints at scale with your supplier in an end-tier setup. A second use case is Catena-X. So Catena-X is the industry initiative for the automotive industry. There are over 185 companies already certified for Catena-X, and SDX provides the members of Catena-X also the exchange of the product carbon footprint data within the secure network. What is new from our side, besides the technical setup, we will show with the UI, etc., is a commercial one. So you see here the bill of material. You find in the deck as well as a community blog, but also on SAP.com, the exact pricing data, which has changed and made it easier for Catena-X members to be onboarded for that use case. If you could change the slide. So, for those who might not know Catena-X, Catena-X is the first open collaborative data ecosystem built specifically for the automotive industry. Its purpose is to enable secure data exchange across the entire value chain, from the OEM to tier 1, tier 2, and actually the end-tier suppliers, all the way upstream and downstream. It's grounded in the European principles of interoperability and standardization. The ecosystem is governed by the Catena-X Association, which defines the standards, the certification, and the governance model. I've attached the link to the Catena-X as well as to the marketplace on that slide for you to look up later. If you could change the slide, please. So from a question, how to onboard, we need to have a look from the technical perspective. So Catena-X is using an open source framework such as Eclipse Tractors-X and requires a deployment of an Eclipse data space connector, in short EDC, or an equivalent. That way it ensures that there's a secure peer-to-peer data exchange. And from a commercial onboarding, the key is an operational gateway and the marketplace for the certified apps like SDX. You find that on Confinity-X. When you're onboarding to Catena-X, the first step is to defining the business value for your organization. So Catena-X is addressing several core challenges for the automotive industries, like listed here. For example, it strengthens the supply chain resilience by providing transparency and responsiveness across the multi-tier network. It also enables trusted sustainability data through a seamless product carbon footprint data exchange or regulatory reporting. But it also improves the quality management throughout data-driven root cause analysis and early detection. As well as it elevates the master data management by the standardization business partner data and certificates throughout decentralized wallets, and it reduces therefore the administrative effort. So the whole goal of the Catena-X network is to share data secure within the network, but also to scale throughout the network. If you could go to the next slide, please. The onboarding is fairly easy. You actually need to sign up on the and complete the registration and activate your so you need to sign up and register your organization, and therefore you need to have a basic company information like your VAT ID on your business address. You will submit your data and an independent clearinghouse will validate it. After that approval, your organization will receive a business partner number, which acts as your unique digital identity inside the Catena-X ecosystem. If you could move to the next slide. The final step is to complete the registration and activation of your virtual identity so you can interact within Catena-X securely. So once your organization has been verified, you can immediately begin to collaborate with your business partner. And by using, for example, certified business applications available through the Confinity-X marketplace, which I have mentioned before. Our solutions, which are verified on the Confinity marketplace, are SAP Footprint Management, Sustainability Footprint Management, and SAP SDX, Sustainability Data Exchange. Those two solutions you can use with your business partners throughout Catena-X. And these applications provide a fast entry point to Catena-X because they're already designed to meet the requirement and the standards for interoperability and data security. One topic we actually have discussed several times with our OEMs, with our customers, is how to onboard your suppliers. And here we've created several different formats on how we can support you on the onboarding. Of course, we do have the standard of the help portal. We do have an onboarding center, and as well as the community itself, you probably know that, helps you to be a first level support. I can highly recommend to use it, to ask questions there, and to get answers from your peers who might have faced similar questions. Nevertheless, I can also emphasize that SDX is a very fast to deploy solution. You don't need days, weeks, etc. to actually set up the system. If we could go to the next slide. Oh yeah, this is already the channel configuration, which you can see in SDX is fairly easy. As a key requirement in the face of the technical integration, it's really important that you have the Eclipse data space connector, which you can then add here, as you can see. Of course, this is just a screenshot. In the real solution, it looks identically, but I wanted to add that for you to see easily. And if we go to the next slide, here you see the setup of a demo for an OEM. And it's not filled in, but if you would have Catena-X, you would put your business partner number in here. And that is quite straightforward for SAP Sustainability Data Exchange. Nevertheless, if you have faced any questions or anything, put it either in the chat or as a comment, reach out to us or put it on the SAP community. And with that, I will hand over to Tim.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'll stay on this slide a little bit because here in the end, from a business partner perspective, so we have, you see the example from an OEM, right? And there's two perspectives that are required also for your knowledge. So first of all, you can see the BPN ID in the screen. Let me go to laser pointer. So you can see the business partner identity, right? So this is where you link your ERP ID for a business partner to the identity that they have within the network. And you can also see here that there's a bilateral contract number because all contracts, or actually all communications within Catena-X, run through this EDC, and within this EDC is where contracts are maintained, and that contract in the end has a reference. They need to be communicated. So as you negotiate the communication, it's done based on an existing legal contract, which means also that you have legal precedents when you communicate it. You have policies behind that communication in the end. So you have a secure communication, and certain master data isn't required for that. If you then go to the next one, where we have a look at what does that then look like from an implementation perspective, right? So if you are an SDX customer and an SFM customer in the end as well, right? You are going to calculate your carbon footprints in SFM, and you have the ability to exchange data in multiple channels. So Catena-X is one of the channels to the outside world in the end. But in order to do so, you have the requirement to also have an EDC connector. And in the end, the EDC connector that SAP has is the data space integration solution, so the SAP DSI. This one, in the end, acts as the doorway and negotiates the communication for each communication. So both for requesting and also receiving requests, also for issuing data in and receiving data. Each of these EDCs basically negotiate the actual exchange the moment that both of them agree that it is according to the policies that each of the companies has set, then the data is exchanged. And what is also important to understand from this Catena-X perspective, which is quite new from a perspective of it is not one single platform, it is an interoperable platform, which means that on the other side, which is the supplier, but it could also account for the buyer, of course, is that they need to have an EDC, preferably the SAP DSI, of course, but any brand will do. And that's the same thing with the PCF application itself as well. So we have created there a network where, as long as the software is certified for the standards that are issued by Catena-X, you can communicate with that other party, which is now something that is now scaling into production for many of the OEMs and starting to onboard their suppliers in this perspective. Now, this is one channel, right? This is the Catena-X scenario. And then in parallel, which is important to understand. So if you are a company that supplies to the automotive industry, but this is not all your suppliers, that doesn't mean that you cannot use SDX anymore. And that is in the end the overall platform that we have as well. With this, we also have our own ecosystem, right, through the SAP Business Network, where you can also exchange data between two SDXs based on your membership on the network. You can sign up for SDX, onboard your suppliers, or ask to be onboarded by your buyers, and basically create an end-to-end supply chain in that way as well. And then with the channel configuration as it is, we can basically scale out to other platforms. So for example, the World Business Council itself is also considering building a network, and there's other networks as well that are being considered that we could move into. So this channel configuration in the end creates a multi-channel application where we can communicate either through SDX to SDX or to any other application that is certified and conforms to the standard of the platform that we connect to, in this case, the Catena-X platform. The SFM perspective does not change, right? So we push values from suppliers in, and own calculated values are published and therefore able to be communicated. And then one of the items that we've recently included as well is that we now also have an API that can connect to, through a pull API, you can get the data from supplier data out of SDX into other systems as well. So this is not yet a publicly available API, but soon to be published, where you can then also pull data out. And this one, as a future roadmap item, will also become an API where you can push data in if that is necessary as well. ERP integration is available already. So we have ERP integration, so you can connect to ECC systems. One addition is that this quarter will also have native S4 integration as well. So that then does not require the REST APIs, but there is an app included within SDX, which allows you to configure the connection with your SFM systems, and then the data replications are all automated from that perspective. Alrighty, if we then go to the next one. So from a feature perspective, there's a couple of things that are going to come very soon. One of those is the group requesting capability. So at the moment, you can create requests in the system, but what we're seeing, especially now that companies are onboarding large quantity of suppliers, and specifically lots of products that you buy from single suppliers, we wanted to also make, from a UI perspective, it easier to operate SDX, less clicks in the end. So that will move towards a group requesting capability, which will, for example, the first group request capability that will be there is request all products from one single supplier, and only request those that do not have an open request, of course. So you can then do that with limited amount of clicks versus a lot of clicks in the end. And then we can also include additional of those features in the future as well. So bill of material, for example, could be one, or other groupings could also be there. Very interested from any customer requirements that would be there to look at these kind of scenarios. But we will start with the request all products from supplier level. Then the next feature that we're going to have additional is what we call preferences capabilities. This will be focused only on the SAP channel because the standards of Catena-X do not allow for it. But what it would actually mean is that we will include capabilities for the buyer when they create a request to actually indicate what kind of data they want. So we'll start with the data model standards, but then that could also expand into maybe a range of the footprint itself, or a geographical region, etc., etc., etc. So depending on which fields are going to be important, we can scale that out. But in principle, you can activate that and guide your supplier into a certain direction for the data wishes that would be there as a buyer. What's important to add to that is that it is a preference, which means that if the supplier does not have that data, but they do have other data, they still have the freedom to provide the data that is available. But mostly from an onboarding perspective, what we're noticing is that it's difficult for suppliers, especially the ones not so experienced from a PCF perspective, to understand what to do. So there's guidance, and helping with extra context will help a lot with that as well. Now, before we go to the next slide, I'll go a little bit into the system and show you a little bit of the changes that have been released recently, and then we can close with a couple of the last slides. So let me switch my channel. I will need to reload my page, both of them. for those who have been in calls before, as we are a network solution, I have 2 instances of the software so that I can facilitate the communication with that. I will make sure to mention when I do so. What's important to understand is that in principle, the flow did not change dramatically, but we changed the UI dramatically. And that's what I'll go through a little bit and show a little bit end to end what has happened now. So first of all, what we saw here is the channel app, right? So just to click, I have here a system set up with 2 channels. You can see here there's an error. That is because there's no EDC connector connected to this one. I only have the SAP channel here. But here you can see that we can maintain different channels, and you can also upgrade to different versions. So this is specifically to a standard set that was released last year. The new standard set is now in rollout. So soon you will also be able to create new versions and then replace one active network with the other one, or one active channel with the next set of standards, for example. So here you can manage in the end your parallel platforms that you would be connected to. Then from a flow of how does this now work, right? So for those who have seen it before as well, as a buyer, I want to receive data. So I go into the inbound system and I have the ability to create a request. Where you in the past would see a full list of all products onboarded and you would be able to request them, we now went more towards a create a request concept where you can now indicate which products that you would want to do and from whom in the end. So in this case, we want to request something from a company called Battery International. We buy all kinds of battery type activities from there. And we have then the ability to send them a request for a battery product in the end. You can see that not yet can I choose the data model, but in principle, we support now the WBCSD data model in 2 versions and the Catena-X data model in version 7. Version 8 will be included soon, as that is now being rolled out, which means that you can basically then also control the data models that you want to do. And we can create a new request. In this case, what you see, and that is also an enhancement. In the past, you could not create a new request. If there was already an existing request, you can now also create an additional request as well and send that request out as well, which means that there is a duplicate. Typically, that would be required with interoperability and ensuring that the requests are up to date. So in that case, that is now one of the updates that happened. And what will happen is that on the supplier side, those requests are going to come in. So they have now also the ability. And one of the first other enhancements that you see here that was done recently is that you now have return by customer. I will go into that a little bit deeper, but you can see that in the inbox, we now have a set of to-do activities. These are things that are open. These are things that have been sent out. And these are things that have been completed. And then next to that, we have an accept and reject capability. That is also created now. In the end, we've now sent a new request for something that was returned by customer, just to give an example. From another step, normally what it would have been speaking is that you would, in this request, see data is already available and you would just need to click on it and then you send it back. But now the enhancements we have done is not just the fact that you can actually add a footprint. So we are now having a sort of a response body in the end. What you can actually now also do is actually answer multiple data sets. So and this is the case with a footprint, if you calculate footprints based on different geographical areas, because you as a company or you as a supplier have plants in different areas, you can now also then create multiple data sets for the same product, and you can reply with all of them in the same reply in the end. And you can also see that we support the different data models. So they are then also replied to in that specific data model in the end. If we then send it back, we can actually then switch back to the buyer. And on the buyer side, we can see that we now have also new indications of inbound actions that we need to take. So we can see here in the inbounds that we have an answer for the data sent by our battery supplier. And you can also see that everything is now pending a review status because I have activated the review status, and I can actually indicate per item that I accept them. And I can also indicate for different items that I decline them. for whatever reason, right? I would require to review the data in the end to see why that is. The moment I would now click on confirm and I would have an SFM system connected, the two that I accept will be pushed into the SFM system as valid data. The two that I have declined actually go back to the supplier, which opens the request again, where they are visualized with the comments and they are informed by the fact that that request needs to be answered again in the end, or if they would prefer to provide the data again in that perspective. And therefore, with the accept and reject flow, the multi-data perspective, we can basically increase the capacity of data. So the higher value, you can now communicate more data. You don't have to request this for every product, for every region, if there's different data regions. So we reduce the number of clicks from a request perspective. And also we have the ability to increase the data quality by actually creating a review cycle and bouncing it back and forth between supplier and buyer based on the calculations in the end that need to be done. And we now very clearly support different data models, where in the beginning it was packed and Catena-X was supported, but was absorbed within the whole pact because of standardization. We now support this as two different separate data models. And that perspective, you can communicate now freely. Within the SAP data channel, we support any data model. And then based on the channels that we connect to, we can limit the number of data models that are allowed. So PACT is not allowed in Catena-X because they, according to the standards, expect the Catena-X data model in the end. Lastly, what I wanted to show you really quickly is that within this, so we now have the create option. You can now also see that we support the creation of those different standards, and each of those standards then has different forms connected to it. So these standards, so version 1 had a different form than version 2. And with this enhancement, we are now far more flexible, which you can also see if I continue. You can actually now see that we have product ID, we have a specific data type, which means that the architecture is now also being made ready, not just to communicate PCFs, but we're becoming more agnostic and also can add other data types that can be communicated for different regulations, connected to another conversation we will have soon. And we have data model standards, which means we can have different standards and different versions. And these different versions in the end connect to a different form with different mandatory fields and different number of fields altogether. So we can support multiple data models in that, creating a far higher flexibility, visibility, and also usability with the accept and request capabilities that we have added. That was quickly the demo that I wanted to show with the enhancements that we sort of have done. And then I think we can go to the next slide. I'm not sure, was it? Exactly. So I will take this one as well. So a couple of the enhancements that we're going to see happening very soon is that one, packed model V3. This was on the roadmap actually for this quarter, but we had to move it due to prioritization. So it will be something that we will be doing next year. That will basically mean that we depreciate the version 1 model that you saw before, as PACT actually indicates, and we will add version 3. For Catena-X, we also continue to support the new standards. So then there's new standards released in September, and there will be an update in the next couple of weeks as well. That will connect then also to an additional data model with additional capabilities as well. And as now visible also on the roadmap, we will move to our first additional use case beyond product carbon footprint, which is the PPWR, packaging and waste regulation, to communicate and collect packaging information from packaging suppliers and communicate packaging information within the supply chain as well, in connection with our RDP, responsible design and production colleagues. I think that concludes the slides that we have for today.
Thank you. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, team. We are now about to start Q&A part. To all our audience, now is the moment to bring your questions in the chat. Currently, I don't see them, but of course, we had some questions that we received in advance, and I would like to bring them up. And during this time, this is the ask to all our participants, feel free to post your questions in the chat. And the first question that have arrived already is about this packaging regulation solution. You just mentioned this, team. Do you have or do you plan any activities for deep dives on this solution as well?
Yes, actually, we will. So there's actually also already invites gone out for a deep dive on PPWR, which will be next week on the 28th. And within that, we are also included for a small deep dive into what will happen on SDX from that perspective and what that will look like.
All right. So to all our audience, we can, let me check. Yes, I have the link and I can put it in the chat immediately for the session next week. And let me do this, link to the... And another question that I have, you have mentioned in your presentation this Catena-X initiative. This is the network that have arrived, that had its roots in automotive industry. Do you also work with another similar initiatives where the network maybe from some specific industry exist? Do you have an overview what else is on in this regard?
Yes, so Catena-X was the first of its sorts, so to say, and is now really starting to scale, right? So the onboarding now from a productive perspective has really started happening, and we're moving and onboarding many suppliers onto the network right now. And then additional to that, as Catena-X is an open source based standardized network, other industries had the opportunity or have the opportunity to look into this and also move forward on those perspectives. And what you're seeing is that there are different kinds of industry platforms already being considered, right? So for chemicals, we have Chemical X. For factory machinery, there is a Factory X initiative as well. And there's also Railway X and Aerospace X and different X programs. So in principle, SAP, at least is listening, has their feelers out, so to say, for all of these platforms. And the guiding principle is that we follow the same technical principles of connecting. The same use cases would be applied to those use cases. So for these industries, in the future, currently conversations are going on also to roll out these similar type of networks. And with the current architecture, with EDCs, our own SAP DSI and SDX as a solution for the PCF use case, and potentially other sustainability use cases as well in the future. SDX is technically ready to move towards those platforms as well. So we're most likely in most of those cases, for those who have not maybe seen it, the Chemical X platform has recently publicated all of their standards for consultation. So that is something that you can have a look at as well for that industry. And we will expect also for Factory X and other X programs for the same thing to do in that case. So this is at least something to keep an eye on and see how that expands, and that will then exactly expand the usability from the solution as well, because the more business partners we connect to through these interoperable networks, the more data can be collected and the more value it is to your, for example, your PCF calculations in SFM.
All right, thank you for that. We have one question in the chat, and it says Tim mentioned that SDX can run any data model. Maybe you can collaborate on this or elaborate on this.
Yeah, so maybe, but that is important to say, right? Because we do not support flexible data models. SAP curates the data models that we support to communicate. So we use, at least maybe standardized is the incorrect word, but a harmonized data model. So that means that for a specific use case, we have specific data models that are supported, which can then be communicated. And the platform now is sort of made ready from the architecture perspective to expand that into other data models. So depending on use cases, it's become much more simple to expand. This is then connects to regulations, understanding the priorities of customers, which use cases would be required above or on top of what we currently do with PCF or other PCF data models that would be required. And we're engaging with different customers already to understand a little bit what their requirements are, which other data models would be important to include in the PCF use case specifically. And then for future use cases like with PPWR, also there, for example, some organizations had looked into standardizing the data models as well for PPWR. Potentially, there are different examples of organizations that might look into this. So that will start with an SAP data model, an SAP own data model. But as standards then grow, the flexibility for us is to add additional data models that are required there as well, where we can then ensure the communication happens through certain standardizations as well. So we are sort of created the ability to support more data models, but we remain in the sort of standardizing perspective. So it will not be based on flexible data models, which you can create as a company on your own.
All right, thank you for that. And there, you also mentioned in your presentation a roadmap that is available for, I think you've mentioned certain features. So do you have more on the roadmap?
Yes, so I mean, we are now getting ready to update the roadmap really soon. So we are now in our planning for 2026. There are going to be a couple of enhancements that we're expecting. So there's a couple of things that the Catena-X standards will require, which focuses on different types of ways of communicating and getting the data in the end. So we will expand the ways that we can receive data for buyers and also offer data towards the Catena-X network, which could also create synergies in other platforms as well. So we are going to expand the ways that you can communicate. We are going to expand also the data model support on the PCF side. I will leave it a little bit as a secret until we publish the roadmap, which those items will be, but we will expand also on the number of data models that we support for the PCF use case. And then on top of that, there will be, of course, some more features that we will also do, but we're still in the planning phase, so I will not highlight too much of which those will be. But the roadmap will be up to date, updated somewhere mid-December, and then we'll reach at least until the summertime with the topics that we're going to be delivering in the next couple of months.
All right, this sounds promising, and I think it's a great moment to wrap up this session. I can't see more questions in the chat. The materials of today's session, the PDF, will be included in the description to the video. So to those who will watch the replay, of course, leverage the PDF that will be included. And we definitely will offer another session next year when all these updates to the roadmap that were mentioned will be available. And of course, we will then be very glad to offer one more session with all these new things and new features that will come up. With this, as I've already mentioned, thank you very much to our speakers. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, team. And for next week, please watch out on Friday, 28th of November. There will be another session with a deep dive about packaging solution of SAP. We will again have Tim in this session and his colleague Darren West. He will be also leading us through this session. So for those who are interested in this topic, please tune in next week. We will be happy to have you live in the session. With this, thank you very much. Have a nice day and bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.